Chapter 26. Entropy. After waking with the sunrise and checking on the bear, the boredom of the morning had stretched into a long afternoon, and fate decided Daniel needed some training. "Might I borrow a coin?" he asked. Daniel hesitated. "Go on. I'm not going to steal it. Don't you have any coins of your own?" "I do, but it's a demonstration, Daniel. I want you to trust the result." He winked. Daniel pulled a quarter from his pocket and handed it to Fate. "Very well. Now, choose heads or tails while it's in the air, please." He flicked the edge of the coin with his thumb, and it flew into the air with a ping. "Heads," Daniel said, as it arced through the air. Fate didn't try to catch it, but instead let it fall to the floor where it landed tails up. "See? You lost," Fate said. "Not impressive yet, but let's try a few more times." They repeated 3 more times each time, giving the opposite of Daniel's choice. 3 in a row. "You're pretty unlucky today, wouldn't you say?" Fate laughed. "That was me. I was choosing whatever you didn't. Now, turn around or whatever you do to untwist your lines." Daniel was too stunned to say anything but complied, making 2 turns to the left. "Very good," Fate said. "This time, you toss it and choose again." Daniel did so, and this time when he said, "Heads," it was heads. He tried 5 more tests, each time coming up as requested. Daniel pulled the orange notebook from his back pocket and began scribbling madly. "Showers. That's the hardest thing to remember. At least it was for me," said Fate, trying to sound like his old schoolmaster. "Once you get in, you start turning around. First you face the water, then back to the soap. Round and round." I used to get twisted up and forget how many turns I needed to set things right again. I tried it with a string on my thumb, but that was too awkward. Habits, Daniel. There's a pearl for you. Develop the habit of showering in exactly the same way every time. "I don't want to know the secrets of showers and rolling out of bed. I want to know what's happening to me," said Daniel with frustration creeping into his voice. "I've told you." "It's luck, of course," said Fate simply. Daniel furrowed his brow in disbelief. Fate sighed. "Well, whatever it is, it seems to have to do with luck. Good for me, bad for everyone around me. Instead of everyone having a mixed bag of good and bad, I get the good and they get the bad." "So," said Daniel thoughtfully, "what you're saying is that luck is simply localized derandomization." "Yes, that sounds exactly like something I would say," said Fate, with a measure of sarcasm completely missed by Daniel. "The universe hates patterns. It wants to turn all the black and white to neutral gray. Nature, on the other hand, loves patterns. They're everywhere, in the swirl of a snail's shell and the veins of a maple leaf. When the universe gets its way, the animals and plants die and decay. They return to random parts." "Entropy," whispered Daniel. "What most people see as luck is when they win 3 hands of cards in a row. That's good luck. 3 losses in a row are bad luck. But if you win and lose every other hand back and forth, you don't say you're lucky or unlucky. You see? When the randomness is clumpy, they think it's luck. When it's not, it's neither. What they don't understand is randomness is always clumpy because, if it weren't, even that would be a pattern. Imagine tossing a coin and always getting heads, then tails, then heads again, every time. That would be a zebra stripe pattern. Nature loves that, but the universe as a whole hates it and rubs it out every chance it gets." Daniel frowned. "So the universe wants to kill us now?" "I should think that was obvious," said Fate flatly. "You're ascribing agency to inanimate things," Daniel argued. "Look, Daniel, I know the universe isn't a living thing. I'm just using it as a metaphor. The universe needs clumpy randomness, and nature exploits that to build life. Life reduces randomness, and death increases it. If you put a squirrel in a blender and turn it on, the parts of the squirrel are still there, but—" "Oh," Daniel interrupted. "That's disgusting. What's wrong with you?" "I don't like squirrels," said Fate, "so whenever I need a gruesome story, it always includes a squirrel." He cleared his throat and continued, "As I was saying, the randomness of the squirrel goo is higher than the whole squirrel." "I guess I'm missing your point," said Daniel, after taking a moment to clear away the mental image of a blender filled with gore. "I'm saying, when we untwist our lines, we're changing the game. We undo the clumpiness without dying, so the universe is shoving as much clumpiness as it can in our direction. The good luck sticks, and the bad luck hits whatever is around us." Daniel was stunned. It all finally made sense. His opinion of fate up to that point was that of a misguided man-child who didn't understand anything about math or physics or how the universe worked. He thought fate had a skewed perspective of the world, but Daniel now realized that he himself had been the one with a distorted image of reality. Fate saw reality through a clear lens, while the rest of the world was nearly blind. After a long moment, a thought occurred to Daniel. "Did you ever know anyone else?" He broke off, unsure how to describe their situation. "Like us?" ventured Fate. Daniel nodded. "Once, when I was still of a modest age, I met a Welshman who said he had recognized something about me. I was used to this when my lines were mostly untwisted, so I was about to dismiss him, but then he offered to buy me a drink and tell me a story, so I sat with him and listened. Because of the story, not because of the drink. There was something different about him. He wasn't gushing like the rest. You know, 'Oh, you're that guy. You're that famous one.' They all seemed certain I was famous, but couldn't quite remember my name. That's the effect of the lines. That's what they do. It makes men want to buy me drinks and introduce me to their sisters. It makes old ladies want to bake cookies for me. It makes young women, well, I think you can imagine." He cast a glance at Daniel, who made no expression. "Pies?" Daniel guessed. "Yes, Daniel," Fate said sarcastically. "They want to bake pies for me." The sarcasm and the context finally registered with Daniel, and he blushed. "Oh!" Fate nodded and continued. "Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes. He claimed to be 1,000 years old. I snickered a little at this. I had no experience with longevity yet myself. Most people were lucky to reach the biblical 70, and I had never heard of anyone getting a hair's breadth past 100 years. He told me his compass points, as he called them, were his to command, and that he also saw that same power in me. I was astounded. He was talking about the lines, and somehow he could sense them in me. I was only half listening up to that point, but he had my full attention then. I had 100 questions, and he answered as many as he knew. We talked to the wee hours, and the bartender had to usher us out. The old man said his name was Mearden. Never ran across that name before. He seemed very relieved to have found me. I think he had been looking for a long while. I was ecstatic at the idea of working with someone else. The things we could do, the places we could go, the mysteries we could solve. As we walked through the dark streets, he took on a sad face. "Young man," he said. Fate stopped and cocked his head to the side. I was over 80 at the time. No one had called me young man in quite a while. It's all relative, I suppose. He said he was tired. He said he hadn't seen a good thing, or a new thing, or anything that made him happy in a long, long time. He said puppies no longer made him smile. Sunsets seemed colorless, and even newborn babies seemed already old. In all our wandering, we had reached a tall bridge that crossed the river in the center of town. He stopped and said now that he had found me, the world was safe. Before I could ask what that meant, he turned around twice while standing in place and leaned back over the railing. Fate took a deep breath and let it out slowly before he resumed. That was the first time anyone had died right in front of me. Oh, I had been to a good many funerals, but no one had actually died right there in my presence before. I hope you never have to see anything like that, Daniel. Fate shook away the gloom. Come on, let's walk around a bit and stretch our legs. He strolled over to the stairway, and Daniel followed in silence, trying to carefully choose his next question from the dozens swirling around in his head.